Hello, in this video I'll show you how to get started with the Figaf PI to CPI migration tool. First off, we will sign up for the trial. Address. And we will then need to approve this email, confirm your interest, so you'd receive confirm your interest in receiving the license, and in a matter of minutes you should then get the license that we need to get for handling this. So now we have received our license that we can use for the tool. First we'll go to the page linked here. We can go to download here, and here we can select we want to download this IoT Java file. What we will need to do is we will put this into a folder. So I now on my computer have created an empty folder with the Figaf tool, and where I'll put the IoT file. I will copy this Java file or that file here. I will create a new file, and I think the easiest is just to go into Notepad++, or Notepad will be a little more challenging. And I will create the file here, save it in this directory here. No, it's a directory. And here we want to call it run.bnt, and this is actually all we need to be able to run the tool. So now we can press run, and this will then start up the tool with these specific properties that we have here. Before we can get started with the migration, we need to set up something more. We need to have a repository that we can have all the data in, and the best way to get that is to GitHub Figaf. Here we have a folder called migration templates. There is a zip archive here. We can download this archive and move it into our folder. And unzip it here, unzip the folder here, and we just need to make sure we have the right data here. So we will need to move this to here, and I normally also would recommend renaming it, and we can delete the two directories that we have. So now in this directory here we have a main folder, and that's all we need. So it says here that we need to create a parameter called this that links to our repository here, and to do that we will go back to our here migration templates, and this needs then to point to this directory. Good. So now that is started, we will need to cancel this because it's stopped. The best way is Control-C, then you will cancel the processing, and that's the best way to deliver it. It comes with a built-in database to simplify the running of it. We can also see there's log files here. So now we can start it again, and now it has the directory with the folders, etc. And obviously if it's Linux or Unix, you would need to use something else than the BAT file. There's also a YAML file that you can use for handling this. And yeah, it depends on your system how long time it will take for it to get running, but once it's up and running you will go to figaf.com/IoT, and here you would then be able to log in. the username is super user and password is default, and it will then ask you to license this, and we got our license in our email here, so we'll add the license, and this will give us testing options. It will also give us migration tickets that we can use to migrate, or migration objects that we can migrate. So now we have installed the tool and we are able to run it. Next thing is we need to connect it to the different systems. And I have a Cloud Foundry system. So here's my Cloud Foundry systems. And I need to check my user. That works. And we will need to connect to this one. So one requirement is that the user you're connecting with for Cloud Foundry, that it is not it's not connected to Universal ID. For Neo, it's probably a little easier. So we will the system ID. So we'll call it CPI dev. We will connect it here to the CPI dev system. We will put in the host name of this, my user, and the password. Let me just find the password. And we have the password here. We need to put in, so this is Cloud Foundry. Neo is a lot easier to connect to. Cloud Foundry, we need to add the FLM map host ID, and the easiest way to get that one is to go to the monitor and see deployed objects. So here we get this ID here. We can then enter these client ID and secret that we generated on the system, and I will just find those that we already have. Authentication is basic, that's okay. For now I'll just enter something not used, because this is only used once you're going to test the migration. So now we have created it, we can test the configuration, and hopefully this will turn out green. If you have entered the wrong password or wrong host, it will give you some errors that you would need to go through in order for you to fix it. And there's some different settings that you need to set up for it. Good. Now we need to go to the PI system. Here we have our PI system, and this is actually much the same way. We would enter here, the system ID makes more sense. We would enter username, password, or the host name and the port. That's okay. Time zone here, this is 50,004. We'll use the weblog module, that is for if we want to create test cases, and we want to select this one. This will stop us from downloading all the SAP software components that we would not use, so that would simplify the processing a little. So now we have created these things. We will test this configuration also, and this works out good. So now we need to get all the data from the different systems. We will select synchronize here, and then this will download all the PI artifacts that we have on the system, and depending on the system and your connection, it can take a little while to run. So now the synchronization is finished. We can see we got some duplicate objects. There's a workaround for this, but in the next build there will be a fix, so you do not need to care about this. So that's the PI system. We do the same for the CPI system. Here we will also synchronize all packages and get all artifacts from this system. And then in this tool, we then have all versions of objects we can then use to manage what is going on and have versions of the different objects. And this would also take a little while to synchronize. So now we have also synchronized the CPI repository. Now we can start our migration, and just so we have one place where we'd add this, we will create a package. Obviously you need to have something that matches what you would be trying to achieve with this, and just cancel. Now we've created the package with no iFlows in it. So now we can select an iFlow we want to migrate. So we will go to the migration here. We can then select an iFlow that we want to migrate. And I have one here, for instance, I want to try. I can then select my CPI system. I can select which package we want to have. And I think I just need to have synchronized the packages again for this new one to be visible here. So let me just do that. So we'll go back to the tracked objects. I will go in my CPI, I will synchronize, and then I will select this new package that we just created, which is called CPI migration. CPI migration. So that is pretty fast to get that created. So we'll go back to our migration here. We will select our object here. We have one here that is fairly good. We will select the CPI system. The package now is here, CPI migration. Invoice 3 migrated. We can perform a check and it will request a license. And we can see now how it will try to migrate these things. So it sees we have these artifacts, and it sees we can use these. These are the different templates that we have in our system, and we can obviously override these. There's a video also about how you can create your custom adapters for these things. You can set up REST adapters with some different mappings, etc. But we give you these templates. You can modify and create them as you like. We can create a preview, and here we can see what is actually going on, what kind of flow we have migrated. And what we can then say, we can press migrate, and then this will take all the artifacts that we have and create the migrated object. So if we go here, we can now see we have one artifact that has been migrated. And let me just go back here. So it complains with some different manual actions that you as a user must take for this to work. So the first is the sender endpoint. There's a user credential we need to check, and you need to check the FTP username also. So if we go here, we can then see this is a URL. I think that's called a generated URL, and you obviously need to put in something that is unique for this specific setup. And for here, for the target processing, we have some different artifacts that has put in to ensure that we're using the right credential, and we obviously need to make sure that this credential exists on the system, etc. So now we can just save this as a version, and that was all we needed to do to handle a migration from PI to CPI, including all the setup and everything involved with it. Obviously, you will probably run into a couple of problems with connecting to the systems. We do have a manual here, and if you look at the different agent configuration here, PO user role for the configuration. Here we can set up what are the different user roles that you would need for it. And we need, so if you just need the testing, you would need these 3 roles, I think is the most relevant one. And in some cases you may also need the, see here it has the, you may need some more roles. So here the API developer role. If you can also, you can configure multiple CPI tenants in here the same way. And for the Neo, it's just the username and the issues you have connected with the password or the FLM map host here, and then you're good to go. There's obviously a lot more details that you can go into about testing and managing these things, but that would be for a later video. Now, just wanted you to get started with the migration and see that the migration worked. If we check what we have created here in the migration, we can see that there is message mappings that have been migrated. We can see all the different resources that we have for the message mapping and XSDs. We can see we have the message mapping, and this one have external libraries in it. And that means if we go, for instance, here we can see the script that it is using. So the Figaf tool created this Groovy scripts, and then it allows you to manage these things. So I hope this helped. There's a lot more to learn about testing and transporting with the Figaf tool, but this is just to get you started with using the migration.